Fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them. Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up top.
Oh my god! Oh, big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, here we go.
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Yeah, so we're using the VRS Direct Force Pro this year. We have a wheel adapter right here, so I'm using the rim I used last year. But the motor right here produces a lot of power, a lot of precision, and it helps me, just feel the car more, feel the car a lot quicker. Especially, this week we're at Sonoma. I can feel it, when it hits the curbs. Any little change in the car, the wheel reacts a lot quicker than your typical gear-driven or belt-driven wheel. For example, if you're on oval and the rear tires break loose, force feedback on it corrects a lot quicker than your typical wheels. There's no resistance pretty much as far as being able to make quick corrections on the wheel. So all that, paired with how precise the wheel itself is, it makes it to where it helps you as a driver, to find that extra hundredth or thousandths of a second. So when you're getting a direct drive wheel, especially the VRS wheel, it's heavy duty. It's got good weight to it, it's not a plastic toy. It feels like you can really beat up on it. A lot of people have issues with their plastic gear-driven wheels just kind of breaking after a couple years. This thing just feels like it can go forever. The forces are really strong where if you might have to let go of the wheel if you get into the wall. You can adjust all that with the settings on it and stuff, but the wheel itself doesn't play around. It's got way more strength than you could ever need, and that's what makes it good, that you can adjust that down to whatever the car needs. So initially you'll be able to get the controller box and the motor together, and eventually you will be able to add a rim onto that option. They'll also be including a button plate on it to put on the rim to have all sorts of different buttons and functionality. Also, pedals are coming, so that's a pretty big deal as well. Hasn't been covered too much, but the goal is to also have pedals to go along with the Direct Force Pro. So that's pretty exciting. The wheel feels good. It feels very much like a real world steering wheel. You just kind of feel like what you would imagine the car to feel like. A real steering wheel in a car is very smooth, it's very direct, very quick, and that's what this wheel feels like.
It's so simple on paper. This is a track which doesn't have any hairpins. It's a track which is predicated on speed, and at worst you're going through a 90-degree corner here and there. But what Road America does here in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, is really test how a car needs to handle. It's got a myriad of elevation changes. Up the hill after turn 5, you've got those small, I'd say flowing runs down the hill. You've got everything around this circuit, which really does test every asset of a car. Welcome to the Dallara Formula IR series, and of course, one of the most beautiful sounding cars ever to have been created in a partnership with Dallara and with iRacing. This is where fiction meets reality, and it's with us right now at Sim Speed TV. You want to get in with the action? I'm Jake Sperry. I'm going to be your guide for this one, joined alongside with Jay Kennedy, pulling double duty on cameras and on comms here today. Reduced field as we are getting ourselves set up for qualifying at this stage. Jay, we just went over the tick for the splits, which means it's 2 splits of 14 and not a field of 27.
That's a better click of the button. Yeah, a little bit disappointed that we've ended up with 2 splits, but what that means is big points haul and big points opportunity for the drivers that actually perform well, and a very big loss of points for those that don't perform well. So I think we're going to see a very, very tight race just based on that alone. Everyone knows that it's a big chance to get some big, big points.
We are not a million miles away from the heart of Cheese Nation, of course, the Green Bay Packers. But we are here in Road America, Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, here around Plymouth, as we get ourselves then into position. You've got the likes of Canada Corner there towards the end with the Bill Mitchell bend, the Moraine Sweep, which leads, of course, over towards turn 5. This is a track which is going to be all about staying in range here today. You've got 3 very, very good overtaking opportunities into 1, 5, and 12. And of course, these vehicles don't have DRS, but what they do have is an incredible top speed and so much of a hunkered down feel to them that you can really get in underneath and use slipstream to your advantage.
It's almost 340 in that run up to turn 1, so 340 k's an hour. So using the draft to your advantage is very, very key. Making sure you stay close, but not too close to the car in front to be able to use that draft effectively. I think we're going to see some fantastic racing just based on the draft alone, but with the draft means that there's the characteristic of cars twitching and not behaving as normal in aero wash. So we'll see how that does play out, but I'm looking forward to seeing how this race does perform.
Well, the first times are coming in. It's Matthew Zeiss at this stage who has set the fastest time of them all at the moment, a 1:35.118 as things stand, or a 1:19 has gone through, but Marco Sanfilippo has gone a full second and 2 thousandths quicker. Here is Tamas Simon, though, to ruin the party potentially. 33.7 with the first lap, 0.4 of a second quicker over the line. He was the driver to beat last time out at Spa-Francorchamps by a mile and a bit more, it seemed, as he went through. There is Omar Bahar, 34.6. For him, he is 888, the most famous number in all of Australian motorsport there behind at this stage. Oberslack now making his run towards Canada Corner.
Lap looks fairly strong as well, looking at the sector time, so it may not go right to the top of the timing sheet, but it will be relatively close. So Oberslack looking fairly strong. Actually, it looks like he may have backed out of it and going to go for a second run. They will be able to get their full 2 laps in. No, he's actually bringing it into the pit, so may not even get a lap in here, Oberslack, just based on the amount of time left.
And that's going to be very crucial, of course. He doesn't get punished as much for not setting a lap time here today with such a reduced field, as Zeiss will make a charge up the hill, then looking to come over the line and set a representative time. Again, 35.1 his best, but he does improve that by 0.2 of a second, moves up to a 34.9. Still, though, in 5th position, as now Danilo Sanfilippo has jumped up into 3rd place. Here's Philip Schiff as well. He needs a little bit of luck, but Marco going to make that drive, and what a time to find right there. 33.540. That is good enough to jump onto pole position, but here comes Tamas Simon. Has he got more? No, he improved, but not enough. So Tamas Simon can only find P2 as things stand then, so not ideal for the number 1. Here goes Bahar to the line. That's a 34.5. That's not bad. That's improvement there, but still not enough to get past Danilo Sanfilippo on the charge to the line. And then you've got Jan Brezina looking to try and make this charge up the hill and over. The championship leader coming into this round, not here today either. That is Rashad Craig, believe it or not, at this stage. But there is second in the championship, James Chester's, then 35.8 with that lap time. That's good enough to go into position number 8.
Oberslack's gone back out on the circuit, but as we said, he probably won't get a lap time in. Be very, very close, depending on how he's going to cross the line. No, he won't make it.
No, he's going to be out.
Yeah, so he'll start from the back of the field. So surprising that we've had 3 drivers in our field not post lap times. Considering how small a field there is. But as you said, they're not going to get penalised as much as normal based on that smaller field. As with a little bit of time, we might quickly look at the champ standings before we get into the starting grid.
Yeah, we might do indeed. It's a very, very close fought championship standings, actually, at this point in time. We're a minute away. They can see 9 points the difference between Rashad Craig and James Chester's. Marco Sanfilippo there in third position overall. And now one of the reasons you see someone like Tamas Shimon, who has got 2 race wins to his name here when it comes to the Dallara Formula IR Championship here on SimSpeed TV, why he's all the way down in P6. Well, just take a little look at why that gap is why it is here, Jay, because he did miss the second round of the championship. That's why he's so far down. That's why he's got a real opportunity to take it by the horns, because he's used 1 drop round.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, he did race in one of the other time slots, but nowhere near as many points. That's why he's down in points, which is a little bit disappointing for him. But what it means is, as you said, a big opportunity for him to score points and take advantage of this race now. And P2 start, he'll be hoping that he can move forward that 1 position and take the win away with a big points haul in this race today.
It's worth noting that we're over 4,000 as strength of field, as everyone is over the line and session is done. So we can take ourselves over to the starting grid then for tonight's proceedings, or today's proceedings, or this morning's proceedings, wherever you may be, all over the world here today at Road America. Marco Sanfilippo then on the front, 133.540. Only Tamas Shimon could match that in terms of time. His brother Danilo starts in third position to Marco Sanfilippo there. Danilo Sanfilippo, Omar Bahar goes from position number 4. James Chester's great qualifying second lap there, moved up to P5 late with Andreas Henkel then alongside on the third row of the grid. Looking back, you've got Matthew Zeiss there in 7th position. Good qualifying actually from the number 12, and that is with Jan Brezina, the Czech driver, there in 8th place. Cal Young and Anthony Katz make up 9th and 10th positions, with the last representative time being set by Fabian Valet, then with a 137.1, who maybe would have hoped that there would be more drivers here today, because Philip Schiff, Jacob Swiderski, and Jacob Oberslack make up the 14 that set up the grid. So it's an all Jacob 7th row of the grid, as all the drivers will be getting themselves ready for action. 28 laps then here today. 1 pit stop will be required in terms of the way that they all try and navigate their way around this fantastic circuit. And there you can see up at the front there, one Mr. Marco Sanfilippo looking for a good run here today. This is a huge double-edged sword as well. There will be massive gaps between points with just how much of a strength of field there is here in this top split race. So they're going to have to be very, very alert the way that they go out there and battle for it here today. Still waiting on 1 driver to get to the grid. That is Jan Brezina, who is not yet gridded up and may decide and at the last possible second to get up onto the grid. So now we go through start procedure. Barney the flagman is up there behind the iRacing logo there at the start. Let's get ready. Green flag drops and we are underway. Tamas Shimon getting off to a shocker of a start. It's very narrow here, of course, around this Road America circuit. You've got to be careful off the line. It looks like Swiderski and Oberslack taking it very pedestrian off the line as they go through towards turn 1. Some side-by-side as Zeiss and Henkel then go at it then in the early stages, but a nice clean start as they go through, and then they both tangle. Henkel then losing the front tyre as he tangles then with Zeiss.
Commentator's curse, if ever you've seen it there. You said it was clean, and then all of a sudden they made contact, but unfortunate for Henkel, and he will have to DNF this race. Zeiss will continue on, but a horrible start for Simon there. He just looked like he bogged it down and maybe used a little bit too much throttle, but way too much wheel spin. He's lost that spot to Sanfilippo and also Chester's. So the Sanfilippo brothers 1-2. They'll be looking to break away. Chester's will try and hold on, and Tamas Simon will be looking to try and take advantage of any weakness he sees in those guys ahead.
And that's the issue here. It's about weakness. And Tamas Simon now puts himself in a position around a very narrow circuit like this Road America track, where he has to go and make places, has to go and make changes, and everyone is going to have to be alert in the early goings of this one through Canada Corner and looking to attack second in the championship, James Chester's, as much as possible here. Going through the left there of Bill Mitchell into that final 14th turn out on this circuit. A little bit of a mistake there from Chesters. He ran wide, and now he's got 2 tyres in the grass, and he immediately lifts off of it up the straight. He wants nothing of Tamas Simon, because he will be driving like a man possessed to move on through this field. A, S, A, and P at this moment in time. Another 3-car scrap going on at the moment as we see Jacob Swiderski now down in the pits and out. He's had an issue here on the opening lap, and it looks like he had issues coming out of Canada corner.
Yeah, he's just run it wide off Canada corner and then hit the wall. So unfortunate for him. He tried to get it going again. But let's see if we can pick up exactly what happened. Just
well, we see then into the tyres there. Just completely outbroke himself into the corner, cold tyres and all. And so with the damage, he pulls it off into the pits, and he's in real trouble then. So we are down to 12 already in this 14-car field. And there is Danilo Sanfilippo right now playing rear gunner to his teammate and brother Marco up there at this moment in time. Tamas Simon here is really trying to harass. Had a little look. Coming out of 5 up the hill to 6. You've still got Chesters there. Omar Bahar sitting nicely on the rear, as well as Philip Schiff trying to get into the party as well. But he's just a little bit further back off of this train. But this is really about settle down into a rhythm. You don't expect it out of this Road America track, but it is a very, very long lap around this place. It's almost 6.5 kilometers. It has a Monza-like feel to it, how quick you go and how quick laps fly around this place. Immediately now, Tamas Simon with a chance to get the run up the hill here to 1.
This is the draft we were talking about earlier that he's going to take advantage of, and he'll get this spot just based on that draft. We saw lots of drafting positional changes throughout this season so far, and that is a move done. And in the background, Omar Bahar is going to do the same thing, just gets it done on Chesters. Chesters had to back out of that one though, so not as clean, not as easy a move for Bahar, but he's now in the 4th. Simon back to where he started.
And we got another battle as well behind that, because Jan Brezina has been quietly working onto the back here of Philip Schiff. And Schiff now will have to try and cover off this move. No chance to do so through the moraine sweep. And as they descend down the hill, Chester's going to try and fight back in front, but that is position gain for Jan Brezina as he gets it through. But there is an up and under that works absolutely brilliantly. Philip Schiff knowing exactly all the limits of this Road America circuit, making sure he gets that one back then, at least for the time being here in this one. So a lot of focus then on how they make progress. We've also got a 3-car train right now, 8th, 9th and 10th position in this race. We've got Fabian Valet on the back of Anthony Cat and Cal Young.
A good little fight here between these 3. Anthony Cat will be looking to move forward. And Cal Young as well, he's looking to gain some points out of this one. Valet looks like he's starting to drop off a little bit, not quite as quick through that back section of the circuit, but he seems to gain it all back with the draft. As long as he's within that 1 second range out of this corner here, he'll be able to draft up and close that gap down to start the lap. It's amazing how quick the laps go in these cars, because we're so used to seeing them around a 2-minute lap time in other series. To see them doing 1.5 minute lap times is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, it shows you just how quick this place is for these vehicles, that they can run such a high average speed. And it's not the fact that they can go 340 kph is the reason why that they are the fastest. It's just how much downforce that they have in these sorts of vehicles. These are very, very sleek and low machines, so you're really not seeing much in terms of heights and slow down by air resistance. So they can really carry a whole lot of speed through the corners, as Young just slightly outbrakes himself there into turn number 5 and shows what too far is, as there is Matthew Zeiss now a lap down, taking the very scenic route to allow everybody to go through. And it's worth noting that he hasn't yet come down in, I don't think, and made a stop. His last lap was a 2:13. In fact, he has come out and made 1 stop already. So a lap down, allowing everyone through.
Yeah, I don't think that car's driving too well for him. He's just going to limp around and try and take as many points as he has and hope that there's a little bit of misfortune to some other drivers. Chesters is stuck with Bahar, but the rest of the battles, other than that one we were watching with Young Cat and Valet, have all broken away. So Simon has broken away from Sanfilippo. Schiff and Brezina sort of hovering around that second but not closing up too much. But this one here, staying under a second. Chester's in the draft range. He'll close that gap back up once again down these straights.
Yeah, he certainly will. It's all about that gain at the moment. New fastest lap comes in on the board then for Marco Sanfilippo at the front of the field. It was a 1:34.8, 3/10 of a second quicker than Tamas Simon at last time by day. You can see the top four on your screen. Sanfilippo, Simon, Sanfilippo, Bahar, and the fastest lap then checked up on the board for Marco Sanfilippo at this moment in time. So the work being done here by James Chesters to try and stay relevant in this race. Top five, technically, you could say at this point, are back to their grid positions, despite the fact they've been chopping and changing all race long. But the real key here for James Chesters has been consistency all season. That's why he's been doing so well. And we still have Schiff and Brezina pretty close together within that 1 second bracket.
Yeah, consistency's been his thing all season, hasn't it? He's outperformed his I rating and his car number every race and put in some really good performances. Hasn't been the fastest car, but definitely been one of the most consistent so far this season. So looking for another solid result. More than likely won't finish up the pointy end of the results, but P5 in a very, very strong field like this is a great points haul for him as well. And again, will be consistency for him moving forward in the season. Will likely lead the championship into the next round if he does finish in that position.
But he does have to be careful about how many points Tamas Simon starts to accrue in what is sixth position in the championship. He's only about 20 points odd back off of James Chesters, and that in this field is way more than one position. So that will mean for Tamas Simon, he's got to be careful, and on cue sets the fastest lap of the race on a 34.759, brings that gap to 1.8 seconds here at the front of the field. Now, this is going to be an interesting focus as things go on, because a lot of these drivers are going to be looking at, okay, what can we do in this sort of race? Those opening 3 rounds of the championship that we have seen here in this series, Jay, have been fraught with dangers and seeing a lot of drivers run into troubles and not finish races outright. Someone like James Chesters, for example, has the number 14 car on, which means he's got the lowest I rating of anybody in the field. You would have said at the start of the season, he wouldn't have made top split, but because everyone's been crashing out, struggling with these sorts of races, and the fact that this hasn't necessarily been the most popular track for drivers, mainly due to the fact that this isn't Tilke design, you don't get away with things here at Road America. He now is, with a real opportunity, going to need to try and push forward here and take maximum advantage of his points haul.
100%. If he can gain one more spot, that's a big gap in points between first and second and third. So because it's such a high strength of field and such a small field, every position is almost worth 2 or 3 in another race. So gaining those spots, making sure he can maybe just do that through the pit stop phase as well, could be where he takes advantage. But yeah, points are going to be very, very crucial in this one. Every position means so much more today than it has in any other race so far this season.
Yeah, so they're going to be really alert to it, and it shows because they are actually trading fastest laps at the front of the field. Marco Sanfilippo against Tamas Simon. That is a 34.708 that has come in from Marco Sanfilippo to put himself back at 1.9 seconds clear at the front of this pack, doing very, very well. Chesters still hasn't fallen off in comparison to Omar Bahar. In fact, gained 0.4 of a second that last time by. So Omar here is just falling away from Danilo Sanfilippo at a very steady rate, a couple of tenths each lap. That gap now 2.2 seconds. So I think Omar's started to look a little bit further behind than he is trying to search in front of that podium.
Yeah, he's definitely dropped off, hasn't he? So he'll be more looking in those mirrors than looking forward now, because he can see Chester's there. Chester doesn't look too stressed though. He doesn't look like he's, pushing too hard to try and close that gap down. He's just happy keeping it around the 1/2 to 3/4 of a second bracket, and just sitting there and watching and hoping for a mistake. So he has been nice and consistent in his pace as well as Chester's. So Bahar will be noticing that and keeping an eye on what's going on behind him, and hoping that Chester's maybe is the one that makes that mistake. But I must say that But looking at this point, like, mistakes might be the only way that there's positional changes in these front five.
That definitely seems to be the case. Meanwhile, a couple of laps ago, Anthony Cat did find his way back through on Cal Young. So the 4-car getting by the number 8 race spot machine there, trying to make some progress, but going through the right-hand corner there. Oh, spin in the background there. Spin in the background. That is Fabian Valet going for a big 180, 360 or co, going through that section. Turn 3, as it's technically called out there on circuit, trying to put the power down as early as you can. But you have to remember, you've got to be so sensitive with how you put that throttle down here, Jay. These vehicles are massive in terms of rear end torque.
100%. They're very, very powerful cars, and if you put the power down in the wrong spot of the corner and put too much power down too early, they will grip up and loop around on you. So unfortunately for Valet, was not too far behind that battle of Cat and Young, and now he's going to have to work really, really hard to get that back. I must say that Chester's is looking very, very close now too. He's got that gap down to under half a second.
Well, it's all he needs, it under half a second, but you can see where the dirty air effect comes in through those final couple of corners. Of course, this used to be an iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series mainstay, of course, here at Road America. It was one that definitely stayed on the calendar time and time again, and a 35.5 that time from James Chester's, again enough to take another 10th off here of Omar Bahar in terms of that battle which is going on out there on circuit. So every single time we continue to see this, these drivers are making sure they are staying as alert as they can, and a few cones being kicked up then by one Mr. Anthony Cat, as Cal Young then on the front stretch gets the move nicely sorted up the hill with that run.
Yeah, and we'll have another look at it as well, because it's just a fairly textbook move that we're going to see throughout this race, up tucked in underneath the rear wing in the draft. I don't feel like this is the last time we're going to see these two change positions. I just noticed Philip Schiff made a mistake and run wide, so he might stay on the replay. But yeah, look at those cones going flying as the braking markers, they're gone.
That's not a mistake necessarily. He left the door open. In fact, got air going through turn 5. There was contact between himself and Brezina. They can see there a little bit of something as they go on through, as that is not quite how a wheel is supposed to look here on this broadcast right now. You can see gets himself through. Nicely sorted then. So position then pretty much leads to where it is at this moment in time. Jan Brezina then is still out there racing, doesn't have any damage to that wheel, and is in 7th position with no dramas to speak of whatsoever. Still though, focus then continues, at least at this stage, between Omar Bahar and James Chesters. They are not changing positions at all. I think James Chesters is happy to play the long game here today. Not many drivers, not many people to battle. I'll just try and pay my time, wait for the pit stop, and try and make that move. He is a driver here, is the Frenchman James Chesters, who just wants to play this one by the book, get some nice safety racing and iRacing, and see exactly what he can get out of each race.
Yep, I think you're exactly right. I just saw too that Anthony Cat back through on Cal Young, same move again. But yeah, Chester's, I think, just happy sitting in the draft, possibly saving a dash of fuel so that he can do a different pit strategy as well, because as we know, in many race series, easier to pass someone in the pits than it is out on track. So being able to do that and maybe jump a second and a half in the pit stop, even though they are fairly short stops, that might be his best option. As just noticed Valet off again at the same corner too.
Well, it seems like it's biting him there at turn number 3 as we catch some virtual racing school replay. Marco Sanfilippo again, fastest lap of the race, an improvement of 0.02 of a second. Now we see this one from Valet going through, and again, back end just stepping out. And there at that point, that surely you would say, Jay, is just a case of not putting enough power down in the vehicle, not having enough confidence to go through that corner. And as such, the less confidence you have in a car like this, the less grip you actually have to play with.
Yeah, 100%. You've got to work the vehicle to its strengths, and downforce is the main thing that it has. So, oh, little twitch there for Schiff. Making sure you put the power down early enough, as well as, not on too early, is very key. You've got to balance that perfectly. Just noticed I've still got music playing in the background, so let me fix that. we go.
So a lot more to keep in mind as this one all continues. Fastest lap comes in for Marco Sanfilippo then, but crucially, Tamas Simon was only half a tenth slower, and they both improved 2/10 over that last lap. Brezina and Schiff still continuing their scrap now for what is 5th and 6th. And we've got tandem racing right now. 1st and 2nd, 3rd and, well, not necessarily 3rd, 4th and 5th, 6th and 7th. They're all trying to get themselves in position. Omar Bahar actually made a slight mistake coming up the hill through 6. Chester's unable to capitalise on what was an over-aggressive line through that 6th corner on track, which is a very tough left-hander, which crests at the very, very top. And as such, they stay in position, at least for the time being. Brezina unable to break away from Philip Schiff right now. And then, of course, you've got 8th and 9th, Cat and Young, still having their race.
Yeah, the only car in the top 10 that's not in a battle, or Oberslack, because he's working his way back forward after those issues he had early on. And Danilo Sanfilippo, but he's sort of battling the clock, making sure that he doesn't fall back to Bahar and Chester's. And he hasn't quite got the pace of Sanfilippo and Simon, but those two at the front, they're just trading fastest laps, as this time Simon gets the fastest lap. But I think Schiff might get a move done here. That was close.
That was late there from Philip Schiff, and as such, they're side by side. Oh, no, they've come together. Just like that, Schiff ends up being turned around as he now finds himself pretty much able to keep going, finds the reverse gear, and will be able to keep on in this race. But that was a case of drivers trying to take it close, and they would do in other series, get away with that sort of level of closeness. But you do need to give that room here in these sorts of vehicles with just how volatile they are. They can see they're heading towards turn number 1. What's the issue here? Does anyone move over? If anything, I would say that's on Schiff trying to take too much on the corner.
I agree. I think that's what it was there. He just trying to squeeze a little bit of extra room and didn't quite pay off for him. So
Brezina's had a moment now.
I'm wondering if
so Jan Brezina up the hill into turn number 6 has looped the car sideways going through, able to gather it up nicely, but at what expense? Cat and Young are both through.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's a little bit of suspension damage maybe for him, and you know, the car's not behaving as it should, or maybe, you know, tyres hyperheated or something like that, and he's not quite coping. But amazing watching the rev limit almost hitting 20,000 RPM in that shoot there. But yeah, Brezina's car possibly has a bit of damage on it from that contact. I wouldn't be surprised to see both of these guys in the pits this lap. I mean, we're not far off halfway. I'm completely wrong though. Brezina stays out.
Just looked like it was the compound mistake there at that point, Jay. But another fastest lap for Tamas Simon. The gap down to 1.5 seconds at this point, and it's really by increment. That gap is coming down, not by much at all. As this race goes on, we focus on Anthony Cat and Cal Young fighting for 6th and 7th positions at this moment in time. Again, they take this charge through towards the Moraine sweep. There have been updates, of course, to this Road America circuit. Just a few surface level updates around this track. On the brakes they go into the left-hander, and once more, now this becomes a train of 3 because you've got Brezina there, who definitely, in terms of lap time, can go at least 6 or 7 tenths of a second quicker than that. First pitter, though, Fabian Valet diving down into the lane.
Yeah, no real surprise to see Valet in, because, I mean, he was struggling with that car. And you're right, Brezina, based on what we've seen, they were breaking away, Brezina and Schiff, from Cat and Young. So Brezina should have the pace to be able to get through, but is there a little bit of wing damage? That would be the only factor I would think that would mean he won't get through. Looks like it might be okay. He might have got away with it, which is very, very surprising. The amount of contact that those two had at that speed, I'm amazed that they're both still racing at the moment.
I am as well. Philip Schiff is 8 seconds back and has actually just run off the road, and he's just found the tyres, Jay. Yeah, I've got one, you've got one now.
Yep. We're even. We're even. Commentator's curse is real, if anyone is unaware. It doesn't matter whether it's sim or real. Commentator's curse is a real thing. And Philip Schiff, unfortunately, has succumbed to it courtesy of me. And my apologies to him, but the Canada corner too deep.
And just like that, that's how easy a wheel comes off here. Only just brushes against those tyres, and that's the rear tyre that ends up looping itself off. So those were the issues that were having to be dealt with at that point in time. But just like that, it all goes wrong. Now, we keep an eye out on this 4th and 5th place scrap, because again, James Chester's just very happy to sit there, very happy to wait, and he gets a number of advantages by sitting behind Omar Bahar at this point in the race. Not only can he save a little bit of fuel in terms of the way he goes through, not only can he put himself in that position and just eye up what goes on, he also gets the ability to dictate what strategy he wants to take. He's not looking behind, he's not being reactionary, he's being proactive in the way that he drives. The only disadvantage he has, you would say, Jay, about running behind here, Omar Bahar, is he's taking a little bit more life out of the tyres the longer he stays there.
Definitely. And definitely right, but as you said, he's got a big advantage of being able to save fuel and not react to anyone else, and he can be proactive in pit strategy.
That was a mistake.
That was a mistake, and Bahar's lost a little bit of ground, but again, Chester's not looking to take advantage of those mistakes. I think it's not necessarily a bad thing to do that as well. What it does, it applies more pressure to the driver ahead when he knows that that driver's just sitting there watching, waiting, and almost acting like the shark waiting to pounce. The predator just sitting there watching, waiting for the right opportunity to go through, and he knows that if he does anything too major, this being Bahar, that Chester's will fly straight on through and take advantage. Chester's is just quite content sitting, watching, waiting, and applying pressure, and he's applying a lot of it now.
Yeah, he certainly is, and this is, for Omar Bahar, a very awkward place. Imagine having a driver behind you, knows he's quicker than you, knows he can get by, but's choosing not to. How does that play psychologically in terms of that for a driver? Because you know you're ahead, and you feel you're ahead, but the only thing you feel is that you're still behind every time you're out there on the circuit. It's very hard to not be negative in that sort of situation.
The only plus that Bahar's got is the +1 in regards to the positional column, because he's going to have to defend positions.
Just had a look at Tamas Simon. He just took 0.4 of a second out of Marco Sanfilippo here. That gap is down to 1.1 with the fastest lap, as in comes Danilo Sanfilippo then to take his stop. Lap 6, end of 15, start of 16. Omar Bahar follows. We are in pit stop window central.
We are, and this is the time too for Simon to take advantage and punch out lap times, because Marco Sanfilippo, he'll be looking at the fuel gauge, he'll be looking at where he'll place out. He doesn't want to come out with traffic. He'll want to make sure that he pits and comes out in clear track. Tamas Simon at the moment, he just doesn't care. He's trying to close that gap down, and guess what? He's now in draft range. He could close this down to way, way under a second very, very quickly. It is now under a second. Simon is flying.
If you understand anything about sim racing, then you need to understand the legacy of a legendary Finnish sim racer at Team Redline called Gregor Hutu. Every time he had stops and he needed to make something happen, he'd have a perfect in-lap, perfect pit stop, perfect out-lap. This is looking very reminiscent of how Tamas Simon wants to take this race lead away from Marco Sanfilippo. A very good in-lap, a very good stop, and a very good outlap. Now, if you're Marco Sanfilippo, now's the time. It's time for a battle of pit crews as they look to hit the brakes on the lane. And Marco took 2 very big wiggles as he tried to slow it down on that single track lane.
Good entry from both of those, but pit stop time, we're looking around about 8 odd seconds stopped. Bahar, 7.2 seconds stopped. So we'll see that in comparison to Chester's. But as they both drive past the stricken car there of Philip Schiff. So only 2 wheels left on the wagon. Battle of the pit crews now between Sanfilippo and Simon. James Chesters has continued on. No surprise, because he was saving bulk fuel under the rear wing of Omar Bahar. Sanfilippo out. Tamas Simon out. Identical pit stop times, pretty much, within half a second.
And
Simon
the next group pull in.
Yeah, so Cat and Young, Brezina,
Young and Brezina and Sites as well.
Yep. So everyone coming in. The only 2 cars yet to pit, Oberslack and Chester's.
Speaking of the devil,
Oh,
in comes Jacob Oberslack as well. So
he's proving
that
me
makes
wrong.
exactly everyone pretty much in and out. Then Cat stays ahead of what is going to be Cal Young and Jan Brezina as well. Zeitz comfortably taking his stop. Now, here's the key. Sanfilippo and Simon, they are together on circuit, so they'll be working hard. And Omar Bahar here, of course, will get an extra lap in comparison to the race leader at this stage, James Chesters, who will be needing to try and get into the pits pretty soon-ish. But Marco here now really in a tough spot here, because you've got that number 1 car behind, number 1 for a reason, closing that gap all the time. Look at how it gets close, but he's having to lift off here at this stage, because Camden corner, you need to be very, very committed if you make a move there.
Yeah, I don't think there's any point making a move at that corner either, because you can get the advantage later on in the lap. The only time you'd want to make a move there would be the last lap, because you're within draft range here. Simon under half a second coming out of the final corner. He's going to be pretty much side by side by the braking zone to turn 1, as Chester's does come in. No, not quite close enough.
Yes.
So it needs to be a little bit closer coming out of that final corner. What that will do, that run just there, Simon will now know how close he does need to be coming out of the final corner to get the move done. He knows that within half a second is not quite close enough. It needs to be about 0.3 of a second for that draft to play its advantage, which he is at the moment. Still not quite close enough. So these are very, very important runs just there for Simon. Even though he didn't get moves made, they will be noted down in his mental notepad, and he'll remember for later on in the race how it played out.
I think
Chester's
he's also
out ahead.
fuel saving. I think this is key. There is Chester's. He's come out of the pits then. And in terms of where he's come out, he's actually pulled an overcut here on Omar Bahar, staying in and out there a little bit longer. He's actually got the jump then on the number 7 American. So that's not ideal for the man from Club California. He now finds himself a little bit further back than one Mr. James Chesters, and that was exactly what Chesters wanted to do. Minimal risk pit stop that gives him the best opportunity. But back to the front of the field, Tamas Simon, I noticed this as he came into his stop. He left the moment that one Mr. Marco Sanfilippo came off of the jacks, and there was about a half a second to a second's difference for them reaching their box.
Yep, definitely. So just looking at the pit stop times, it is around about half a second less for Simon. The same pit stop time as Omar Bahar. Chester's pitted for more fuel than Bahar, so Chester's probably was fuel saving in the early phase and now just wants to make sure he doesn't have to. But yeah, Simon, you're right, he probably has just, taken that little bit less fuel so that he can fuel save in the next few laps, and then maybe in the last 3 or 4 take advantage.
Here we go.
Then again, we could be completely wrong.
He could just go for the move right now. Why not? Through the Moraine sweep into turn 5. Tamas Simon moves to the race lead. Now, if you're Marco Sanfilippo, knowing that you had to be patient, knowing that he's had a shorter stop than you just sit and wait on the back, surely. We saw them trading fastest laps over that first stint. And now, here with not long to go in this race, we're on 19 of 28. It's 9 to go at the line. Surely you stay behind for 8 laps if you're Marco and you go for the killer blow on the last lap.
You apply pressure and make sure it uses as much fuel as you can. You make sure that you stay there, you make him work hard in the lead and make him use that fuel up, because if there is a fuel issue, Marco will know that he's taken less fuel at the stop. He'll have that data in front of him. So he'll know that, and he'll make sure that he applies pressure and make Tamas Simon use every single milliliter in his car. I'll tell you what, a bit nervous seeing the dust flying there for Simon, but Sanfilippo will probably look like he wants to make a move here but won't do it, just to apply pressure and make Simon use everything that he's got.
Meanwhile, in the background, last lap, Omar Bahar found a way through into turn 1 over James Chesters. That's the change for 4th position out there on the road. It continues here for the race lead as they go through then turn number 3 out on track. Again, half a second plus gap now for Tamas Simon, who did really, really well actually over that lap of 34.6, getting back up to speed here as they had that little cooling period with the tyres as they went through and got it done. So Marco Sanfilippo here has got to really stay in range now. He's got to really hope that those hard compound tyres definitely still work in terms of the way they go through. They're 0.4 of a second, the gap when they cross the line. And Marco needs to be good in this middle sector. We've seen if you're going to make it happen, you make it into 5 because you don't have an immediate chance to attack. And you've got this long, over 180, I'd say about 200-degree right-hand corner, which kills the left-hand side tyres, known as the carousel.
Yep, and then you've got the kink straight after that too. So if you do hyperheat your tyres through the carousel, you've got that next corner that you have to try and limp them through at immense speeds, over 300 kilometers an hour in these things. So, yeah, applying pressure is exactly it. And you're right, turn 5 is probably the key passing place just based on that, because it is very, very tough to overtake. Very, very narrow circuit in regards to actual width of the tarmac. So using that to your advantage through turn 5 is probably the key. As I just see smoke signals coming from the pits out of Philip Schiff's car. I don't think we'll see that again.
I think that may be a blown engine potentially there for Philip Schiff, as he's been idling there for so long. That will take more time on the horizon, of course. But Tamas Shimon again sees Marco Sanfilippo behind, forced to go a tenth quicker that last lap by a 34.5 as they all made that push and tried to go forward. So on the brakes once more into that left. It's very much an aggressive amount of curb taken by Tamas Shimon through turn number 5. Gives him that opportunity to go out there and attack these corners, I think, a little bit more than Marco Sanfilippo, who's just able to gather it up quite nicely, keep himself comfortably in a range. It's worth noting as well that the gap between Omar Bahar and James Chesters has just peaked up over a second. So Chesters, I think, very happy with an 18-second margin to Anthony Gap to stay in what is position number 5 at this moment in time.
Yeah, as we said though, Bahar did take less fuel, so maybe he's thinking that Bahar might have fuel issues later on in the race, but this battle between Sanfilippo and Simon definitely not over.
Issues. Obraslak's gone for a little bit of a spin coming out of the hurry down section.
Ooh.
So this one happening down in position number 9. He falls behind Fabian Valet, to go through. Sorry, a little bit earlier on than that as he goes through. That's the Kettle Bottom section out on circuit. We see Jacob Obraslak right now. So it is a bit further. There you can see the tail end of it then. Just on his own. Just grabs a little bit too much, I think, through that corner. It's coming up here, the next 2 corners you see.
Hasn't had the best race, has he, Obraslak? He was starting to take advantage of others' misfortune and starting to move forward, but just ran tiny little bit too wide, and then around the car goes. Still in position 10 though, so much better from where he was not that long ago, way back at the rear of the field. We go back to the leaders. They're actually not far off catching Obraslak and putting him a lap down.
And that will be very, very cautious to Tamas Shimon. He'll have to negotiate it first. He just went 0.3 quicker than Marco Sanfilippo that last lap. Pulled the gap out to 0.75 of a second, but Marco has very comfortably pulled that gap back in, using the draft to advantage. He doesn't want to stay too close behind, because that's when the dirty air effect really does affect the way you drive. You sit 6-7 tenths back or so, and that gives you maybe a little bit more feel in the car in comparison to what you would traditionally get otherwise. Quite a race to the driver in third. Danilo Sanfilippo once more playing second fiddle to his brother, who's fighting for that race win.
And Marco probably the perfect gap at the moment. If he can get through this corner and maintain this gap as it is, he may be able to get a move done into turn 1. He's close enough. Under 0.4 of a second. Not quite, but have a look at that lap time that Marco's just done.
That's a 1:33.7 in the draft. It was a 34.1 from Tamas Simon, which was not his quickest lap of the race, but his second quickest. But Marco, using the draft, goes 4 tenths quicker than the fastest lap overall. Got the gap down to 0.3 of a second. That's not pressure. I don't know what is, because Tamas Simon is pretty much going at 100 at this point and is seeing Marco just stick on. Obraslak there on the left-hand side pulls well out of it. And why wouldn't you pull well out of it? You've got 2 hard-charging vehicles there flying at 3 seconds a lap quicker than you.
Yeah, nothing to gain for Obraslak there defending that position. He's just happy to sitting back and watching. in a great spot to watch too, but as you said, he's not quite up to the pace of these guys today. Probably still has damage from that lap 1 hit of the wall that he had at Canada Corner, so he's limping that car home for as many points as he can. But Marco Sanfilippo, I must say that run that he did such a good job, but he's lost it all through that middle phase. That was what you were talking about earlier, that Thomas Simons looked really strong through the middle phase of the lap. And Marco definitely lost all of that ground that he gained on the lap previous, and Thomas Simon responding to that incredibly quick lap time on the previous lap.
He said, well, if you're going to get that close, I'm going to try and pull back at you. I think Marco Sanfilippo through turn 8 was very cautious about running wide, had to lift off the throttle, and when you lift off the throttle in these vehicles, you do lose half a second quickly, because that's still a 34.3 from Marco Sanfilippo, but it's an undrafted 34 flat from Tamas Simon. Pulls that gap back to 0.6 of a second. Fortune there for Marco Sanfilippo. He didn't really have to worry about that in front. More lap traffic, though. It's in the form of Fabian Valet here in terms of this race. And this is going to be great news for Tamas Simon, because he'll just pick up that little bit of draft as they go through. And Marco Sanfilippo has to really close it up through the braking zone to try and get himself into play. So this still continuing out there, still going to be difficult. It is 5 laps, but at the moment, it's advantage Tamas Simon right here, as he's just used all the road and a bit more there going up through turn 6.
It's one thing I was just starting to notice over the last couple of laps is the amount of track that Simon is using in comparison to Sanfilippo. Sanfilippo very, very content to keep it within the lines, not using the curbs at all. And Tamas Simon is using the absolute extremes. They're like polar opposites. You'd expect probably somewhere in the middle to be what you'd think that drivers would use. You know, a little bit of track limits, but not too much. But they're both at the extremes. One keeping it well and truly between the lines. The other using every single piece of road that he can, that being Thomas Simon. He's doing everything he can to break away from Marco Sanfilippo. Sanfilippo keeping it quite controlled for the most part within the lines of the track. And they're lapping at pretty much identical lap times. It's incredible to watch.
It certainly is. There was a mini slide as well through the final corner for Tamas Simon. So Marco Sanfilippo, 33.9 again, closing that gap down to just 1,000th under 0.4 of a second. And again, another half a tenth there through the opening corner. But again, we'll lose that coming out on the exit of that first turn. So this is about setting up. It's about waiting, and it's about patience at this moment in time. Marco's got to set up the perfect run possible, and it is worth keeping in mind that there are gaps starting to get a little bit close. Second, third, and fourth. They're also third, fourth, and fifth. Sorry, they are split by just 5 seconds. So any mistake from those drivers could see positions change for that final spot on the podium as they again race themselves through the next right-hander into the hurry downs.
This is where you see the difference in the lines as well between these two. You see that Sanfilippo keeps it well and truly within the lines of the track, and Tamas Simon happy to use the curbs a little bit more. He's happy to put 2 wheels off the track in certain places just to use that extra little bit of width. But I'm amazed that through the kink how shallow they actually take the exit there. So that's probably the one corner I'm most surprised that they don't use all of the track limits that they have available to them. Obviously they've done enough testing to understand, but this is the closest Sanfilippo's been. I reckon we could see him move into turn 1 here. He's really close now.
You're taking the words right from me, Jay. Here comes the chance then for Marco Sanfilippo. He's been eyeing it up. He wants it with a handful of laps to go. 3 left at the line. Here comes the charge. Moves to the inside. Let's take it away. It's the Palermo-inspired car against the plain old white one. And they get it all sorted there. But he wiggles on the exit here, which allows Simon the chance to attack now here through this next right-hander at 3. And now Simon will have a chance, if he wants it, to go back down the inside here and try and attack at the Moraine sweep. He moves over to the right-hand side. He wants to give him that inconvenienced inside line if he can. Marco Sanfilippo might just decide to fight this one still. He will have to, but Tamas Simon, he's got it all nicely covered then. Not this time, but you got to try and find another way if you want to get it done, Marco.
Yeah, but Marco also knows that he's within range. He knows that he's close enough that he can apply the pressure. And of course, there is still that slight little question mark over Tamas Simon's fuel range as well. So all these questions around this race are going to be answered in the next 15 odd kilometres of racing. This has been a brilliant race. Smaller field, but I tell you what, it's brought double the action.
Certainly has, and a lot less retirements. We've only lost 3 drivers here today. Jacob Swiderski, Andreas Henkel and Philip Schiff. The retirements from this race so far. On the brakes into Canada corner once more. The drivers come along and they know that this 6.44 kilometre circuit really has not felt like it for the way they've been racing. They've had themselves in full tunnel vision,
mistake.
and there's the mistake from Marco. Just pushes wide through the final corner. Didn't have any grab on that inside, but it keeps himself within a second. Now look at that from Tamas Simon. He's trying to break draft here at 0.6 of a second, but that still gives Marco Sanfilippo a half chance here. He can just get a good lap in here now. He's got a real chance to bring it all back together on lap 28 of 28.
Must say that that mistake from Sanfilippo in the final corner, I think that was because Tamas Simon used so much of the track. He had 2 wheels in the dirt in the or just before the braking zone, and I think that Marco preemptively thought that Simon was going to go straight ahead, and he outbroke himself paying attention to that. Oh no, that's a big mistake.
There we go. Just like that. Turn 6, up the hill, back steps out, he goes to gather it up, and now there's only one thing that can stop Tamas Simon right now, and that is a tangle with Jan Brezina here, who is about to become lap traffic here in this race. Marco Sanfilippo has given absolutely everything and a bit more, and he pushed it to 101%, and there went the last chance that he potentially had to go through and get what he wanted. There'll now be a lap and a little bit to go. Tamas Simon is just going to be hoping that the Czech driver in front is just going to get out of the way, and does so very, very patiently.
Yeah, good job from Brezina to get out of the way of both Simon and Sanfilippo. I must say that the guys have been very, very good when they're being lapped, but white flag for Tamas Simon, and he has driven a great race after that horrible, horrible start. We didn't think he'd be able to get back to the front, but he's driven a great race, and he's just got to do it one more time, bring it home for what will be one of the best wins he would have had in a long time.
Well, this is what sim racing is all about. You don't get the start that you want, and then you have to work. It took him a handful of laps to move himself back up into P2. He spent the majority of that first stint trying to chip away like an artisan over at the gap that he needed against Marco Sanfilippo. When it came to the stops, he had to try and cover and react as much as he could, especially with the fact that Marco had the much better grid stall and could be fully flat coming out of the pits, where someone like Tamas Simon could not. But he got himself back into that range, got himself into attacking position, and then when he needed to, got himself to the front of the field, covered off the moves from Marco, and when the mistake came, he knew that he has done exactly what he has needed to. Through the kink then for the final time, he comes along, and now over towards Canada corner. These are the races that make championships. These are the races that make champions, and these are the sort of races that you need to put in the back pocket if you want to construct a season, especially in such a reduced field like this one was today. Final corner for Tamas Simon as he rounds it with a whole heap of curve to show off his driving style. What a wonderful victory by him today. He just proved to everyone why he is the driver to beat.
Great job from Tamas Simon. And Marco Sanfilippo shouldn't be too disappointed with that one mistake. And it was basically brought on by pressure from the driver ahead. I must say, yeah, Valet's had a moment coming out of the final corner. He's missing the front wheel, so he will have to try and limp it home. Must say, Danilo Sanfilippo was getting run down by Omar Bahar. Another lap, and Bahar may have got him. So good job from Bahar to finish 4th. Chester's in 5th, but Danilo Sanfilippo in 3rd. But that battle between Marco Sanfilippo and Tamas Simon, I think we're going to see that rage on for the rest of the championship, and I sure hope we do.
I certainly do as well. It looks like then it's all over for one Mr. Fabien Valet. He is going to park that one then over and take the tow. Anthony Cat then, a P6 finish for him. A very quiet run. Had to fight hard early on with that driver there, Cal Young. But once he got through, gap made. Nothing they could do about that. That was always going to be a very strong battle towards the end. But we can get official classified results then up at the final point of this one here. We get it up on your screen. I was too busy reading chat there in Sim Communications. Tamas Simon picks up the win, 44 minutes, 53 seconds, wins by a margin of 3.3 over Marco Sanfilippo, who had every reason to just dial it down on the final lap. With the way that Tamas Simon drove today, there was no real way that Marco could stop it. Brother Danilo gets third position, though, overall, in what was a very lonely race for the number 2 machine. Omar Bahar there, just behind in 4th place, had every reason to close it down. The gap between them was down to just 1.9 seconds. James Chester's looked like he had it all done, had position number 4, but ultimately no pace towards the end. Lost out to Omar Bahar, but still, it's consistent points. It's 5th place. It's what James Chester's does best. Anthony Catt finishes in 6th with Cal Young there in 7th, and then drives a lap down or worse. You got then Gian Brezina, Jacob Oberslack, and Matthew Zeiss then, the last finishers in this race. And then your retirees just a corner away from the finish line. Fabian Valet with heartbreak into the tyres. Philip Schiff finding himself in an incident with Brezina. Andreas Henkel tying up in the early stages then with one Mr. That being, of course, Matthew Zeiss. And then Jacob Swiderski having his issues here today on the opening lap as well, finding himself in trouble. Well, if you like speed, you're coming to the right place here with the battling that we have going forward here in the Dallara Formula IR series, because we go to the temple of speed. Pay your tithing. We're heading to Monza next week, and really on the outskirts of Milan, that is truly racing capital that we find ourselves with, Jay.
Yeah, it should be a very, very good race at the wonderful Monza next week. It's a track that should be very, very well suited to these cars. It's going to be very, very fun to watch the speed that these guys have into the braking zone at turn 1 and around the whole circuit, actually, because it's such a fast circuit. Very, very similar in regards to pace and top speeds as we've seen this week here at Road America. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Should be a very, very fun race next week. Same time, same place.
Exactly. The only place you can catch the Dallara Formula IR series is with us here at SimSpeed TV. If you haven't had the opportunity to do so, you're new, you're here for the first time, you can like, you can share, and you can subscribe for more amazing content brought to you by SimSpeed TV. It's also not the only thing we've got going on right now here in terms of what's happening tonight, because what we're going to be doing here in what is 58 minutes from now is looking over to what is the VRS GT series, which will be coming through, and that is going to promise to be a spectacle. But from Jay Kennedy on the cameras, myself here bringing you all the action, and of course our sponsor, the Virtual Racing School, who have been on the replays for us over the course of this season. We thank you so much for joining us with all of the action that we've had going on forward. I'd like to bring you all into the party in about 57 minutes from now, and we have to say, Tamas Simon, he had to work for it. He dug down deep, and he just had a little bit more than what Marco Sanfilippo has. But positives to be taken. Monza next time out. We will see you then, and we will see you in just a little under an hour.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now. He's got traction. He's got everything outside of both of them. Maloney. Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up to him. Oh my God. Oh, big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
Section's very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go. Oh no.
That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?